The concept of the project was to keep the gameplay simple and minimal, but the current state of the game lacks depth. So the plan for this week was to add a new mechanic to add variability to the gameplay. The one mechanic that I was playing around with was a tile that triggers a ripple in the alternate direction. So when the ripple reaches it, it will flip the tiles in the other direction. I added this and it did add depth to the gameplay, but it wasn't enough. I was thinking how I could make this more complex without adding a whole new mechanic. That's when I thought of inactive and active tiles. An inactive cross tile cannot be changed. But tapping an active cross tile will change it to a pass-through tile, and a pass-through tile doesn't do anything. It has no effects and lets the ripple go through. This mechanic was perfect. I didn't have to introduce something completely new, but they still managed to add something to it. Once I added the inactive and active tile mechanic, I thought it might be a good idea to add it to the colored tiles too. So an inactive colored tile cannot be changed. It has to be changed through a chain reaction of the other tiles. I tried to design some puzzles where this would be a good mechanic, but I couldn't come up with anything too special. So I think I might add these tiles when I want to introduce some difficulty into a level. I store the type of a tile using an enum. An enum is a user-defined type and generally used to store the state or the type of an object. For example, if you want to store if an animal is a mammal, bird, fish, marsupial, etc., an enum can be used for it. I defined the 5 types of tiles in the enum. But these 5 types don't account for the active and inactive variants of these tiles. So I'm going to use bitwise operations to create the active and inactive versions of these tiles. Let me explain a little more. Enums are just integers, masked as a user-defined type, and you can explicitly assign numerical values to them. And under the hood, everything in a computer is stored in binary. So if I assign these enums numbers that are powers of 2, I can get binary numbers where only one bit is turned on and they still look different. 1 has the first bit turned on, 2 has the second bit turned on, 4 has the third bit turned on, 8 has the fourth bit turned on, and so on and so forth. With some binary operations, also known as bitwise operations, I can merge two enums. If I merge an inactive tile with a losing tile, I'll get the fourth bit turned on and the first bit turned on. Or if I merge cross tile with an inactive tile, I'll get the first and the second bit turned on, which makes it an inactive cross tile. If you notice, there's one thing common between these merged tiles. The first bit is turned on for both the tiles, because an inactive tile is represented by a number with the first bit turned on. Combining these enums is how I made all the different types of tiles. So why go through all of this pain when I can just define more tile types? And I had to list them out anyway, because if each tile was defined separately and I needed to check if a tile was inactive or active, I would have to check against all the inactive types in the enum. With this bit manipulation method, I don't have to check each enum type. All I have to do is check if the last bit is turned on. If it is, we know it's an inactive tile. Checking for singular bits is again done with bitwise operations. Once I check that one bit, I can carry out the operation depending if the condition is met. Because I have this setup in place, I can define complex tile types like an inactive, cross, losing tile. And I won't have to make any changes in the code. But for now, I'm not going to have these complex tile types. The binary manipulation method is very useful, and Unity also supports this. By giving the enum the flags attribute, you can make it so you can choose multiple options in the inspector. For example, if I have an animal class and there's an enum for the traits of the animal, I can select multiple traits in the inspector. Once I took care of the edge cases I introduced by adding this new mechanic, I called it a night. Next week, I'll be working on adding a tutorial to this game.